This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, and whether you love them or you hate them, it seems that cryptocurrencies have arrived on the global stage and they're not going to be going away anytime soon. And I think they are now having actually a profound effect on society. Individuals can become their own banks. We are now seeing voluntarist and anarchist-minded people becoming millionaires, and their messages of voluntarism and love through the non-aggression principle are starting to permeate their ways throughout society, and this truly is a beautiful thing. So joining me on the line today to talk about some of these developments in the latest blockchain and cryptocurrency space is our good friend Lior Gantz of wealthresearchgroup.com. Lior, thanks for joining us and taking some time to speak with us today. So many things I want to get into. We've seen in the last few weeks in particular, Bitcoin being on an incredible volatile moves. It got up to a record high of, I think it was 7,600 US, dropped down back to around 6,900, and then within the last day or two, it's back up to be hovering at around above the $7,000 mark. So what do you make of the incredible resiliency, first of all, and the volatility of Bitcoin in just the last few days?
Dan, I think what's going on right now with Bitcoin is it's going through a phase where it's being it's a mass adoption, and but it's very small, so it's very volatile. People think, people in the alternative community think that it's really big, but if you think on an absolute basis, there are about 500,000 people that own about $5,000 worth of Bitcoin or more. So just think that in the first 4 days of iPhone launching, it had more than 500,000 purchases. So Bitcoin is very early stage on an absolute basis, and in the economies that it's needed most, it's non-existent even. With regards to mass adoption in unstable economies, in third world countries, it's still not developed yet. And so it's still very volatile. I mean, if 1% of gold purchases would go into Bitcoin, the price would be around 100,000 per coin. So you're looking at a very small market. And I think a lot of things move it, and it's more volatile. But the prospects of it are absolutely amazing when it comes to the next year or two. And let me tell you why, a few things. One, there's a bill that is now going to be passed through Congress, Dan, and this is huge. Whether you know it or not, in 2014, Bitcoin was classed as a property in the U.S., which means that if you gain anything with it, you have to pay a 28% tax, as you do with gold, for example, when you sell gold for a profit. But now they're rushing through a legislation that will exempt every transaction that you purchase with Bitcoin, buy and sell, under $600 as exempt. That would class it as any other currency in the world, like dollars, euro, etc. This will pave the regulatory road for us to call Bitcoin a currency and not property. So this is huge, and it's one of the reasons why many people do not use Bitcoin as currency yet, because they're afraid of this gray area with the tax, with the IRS, as they should be. So this is a huge move going forward. Fidelity, obviously one of the largest brokerage firms in the world, it has 26 million customers just in the U.S. Its CEO is a very big proponent and fan of Bitcoin, and he is launching an initiative with Coinbase where now you can use the screen, the trading screen, on your Fidelity, and soon you'll be able to buy and sell Bitcoin. So that adds 26 million potential customers to Bitcoin. The way you should think about Bitcoin right now is the same way you think of a network. The network effect of Bitcoin is like like when you own the first fax machine, for example, Dan. It would be almost useless. It would have negative value to you because you spent it, and there's no utilities you can do with it. The more people that have faxes, the better your return on your investment is, because you can create more messages to various people. That's exactly what's going on with Bitcoin. The more people are talking about it and moving into it, the more it gets adopted, the more the network effect of it gets larger. And I think in 2018 we might see it passing through this mark of $10,000, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it over $20,000. No, we won't see it. We won't see the gains that have been realized in the first few years, but the amount of effort that the people had to put in those first few years to get this message across is not the type of effort that you would need to do as a passive investor to see your investment go up 400, 500%. This is a very passive investment at this point. You don't have to go around the world and speak the word of Bitcoin. It's much more adapted right now. And obviously there are other opportunities in the cryptocurrency space, in the blockchain sector, and perhaps if we see more regulations in the ICO market, then there might be viable opportunities there. But suffice to say, it's becoming big, especially the blockchain itself.
Well, you mentioned that there's still a little bit of fear there involved with some people when it comes to getting into this. And I think that has to do with people's concepts of Bitcoin not being a tangible asset. And sometimes a lot of people don't understand that just because you can't hold it in your hand doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And I'm wondering if you can maybe explain the similarities that Bitcoin has to gold in terms of its scarcity, which drives the value, creating demand. Maybe you could explain why it is just as legit as something that is tangible, such as gold.
Okay, so basically these are two very different asset classes which are trying to meet the same goals. And the goal is store value or asset preservation, purchasing power preservation. Gold is a metal, is an element, and through thousands of years it has proven itself to be the best element for storing value. If you try to store value in rice or potatoes, for example, they expire and they go rotten, so they're not good. Alcohol, which was used, can evaporate, right, through heat, etc. People tried stones, shells, etc. There's been a lot of ways that people tried to store value over time. It's just that gold and silver have done it better. So this is through trial and error that people just decided that it's a good idea to pay a premium for these two metals, gold and silver, because they have unique characteristics as metals to facilitate a store of value. They're not perfect, but they're the best. And the other thing that I have to tell you is, for millennials, especially in the Western world, cryptocurrencies are the way that previous generations have looked at gold. So obviously gold has a network effect as well. And so investment demand for gold does play into its price. And that's important to understand. But also important, Bitcoin's price is very much affected right now by the cost of production. So the amount of energy and electricity it takes to mine it has to do with its final price, and that's going to be important to see what's going to happen when the price also goes down. So to see that, so that's important.
And that gives it value too, doesn't it? I mean, these miners are using a lot of energy and electricity, which essentially gives the coin value. You can say that. You can say that all the human labor and energy and thought and everything like that has to do with creating it is something you can factor into the price, and it would be true. Now, with regards to gold and silver, one of the most determining factors, Dan, is the price of oil. Oil is the most important expense for mining companies, and right now you're seeing oil at 2 year highs. So that's going to be very beneficial for commodity companies and for gold price for sure. But when gold prices rise,
because oil prices are moving up, gold companies are even a better investment if you're looking to get rich from gold and not just store value. Gold companies, specifically, top quality ones, and we feature those types of companies with Wealth Research Group. In fact, you can go to wealthresearchgroup.com/gold playbook, and it's like an encyclopedia of everything you need to ever know about gold investments. It's a special report that I created for your listeners. But anyways, enough about that. So,
well, in terms of in terms of a store of value, it seems that right now there's a major problem with the middle class, or lack thereof, in the United States. And could the suffering middle class use Bitcoin as a safe haven to protect themselves, especially in the face of a coming crash? I mean, what happens if we see something comparable to what we saw in 2008? What would happen to Bitcoin, for example, in a crash like that kind of a scenario?
Well, I think you've touched on a few points, and let me start by saying that what gave birth to this odd anomaly called the U.S. middle class was World War II. So after World War II, because the United States had the privilege of not being hit substantially, it became a manufacturing hub for the rest of the world, and it was able to charge large prices and for manufacturing everything for the rest of the world. And the margins were so high that a middle class was created from manufacturing jobs. But obviously, those margins have shrunk as globalization and knowledge spread throughout cheaper labor countries. And the U.S. is no longer a manufacturing hub. And it's important to understand that the U.S. is going through a huge reshaping of its economy. And in 5 to 6 years, there will be no middle class in America anymore. You will either be part of the upper class or you'll be part of the lower class. The middle will not be there because manufacturing is leaving the United States. And what the United States has now, if you look at what drives the U.S. economy, it is construction, which is obviously related to population growth. The U.S. population is growing. It's going to be about 350 million people by about 2035, 2040. So it is growing, and construction will still play a huge role. Services is the biggest part, but services are very dependent on the petrodollar and the fiat monetary system. Tech companies is really headquarters of tech companies. So skilled human resources is what the U.S. has to offer to the world. Quality thinking people, but those are not the majority. And so the U.S. is changing quite rapidly. And if you want to live in the U.S. in the next 20, 30 years, you got to really think about occupations that will not get outsourced. So there's a huge population that is retiring. If you can find yourself in an occupation that treats these people, this will not get outsourced. They cannot outsource masseuses. They can outsource anything that has to do with with therapeutics and medicine, and anything that physiotherapy, etc. So that will play in a major part in the future of the U.S. as well as tech, like I said. But whatever will not be outsourced is going to be very important for the U.S. economy because it's a higher it's higher labor, more the wages are higher. Artificial intelligence and robotics are going to do away with many of the jobs that some Americans have to do today. So expect a lot of career changes in America in the next 20, 30 years. And I think it's important for the middle class to understand that its problem is not assets, because the middle class is not defined by the amount of assets it's owned. It owns. The middle class is defined by the amount of income it earns, because the middle class is very much a population that likes to spend a lot of the income and not invest in assets so much as it likes lifestyle. And it's important to understand that for the middle class to retain what it's accumulated thus far, it's important that they get into assets. Yeah, very important at this juncture that they take cash and move it into productive assets. But it's more important that they find income-generating ideas and occupations, careers that will replace the obsolete careers that we see right now in America. A lot of people are getting pushed to the sides. There's almost 100 million people, Dan, that are outside the workforce. So I know that unemployment is only 4.1%, but that's 4.1 out of the people that are in the workforce.
Yeah.
So think that if out of 330 million people, 100 million are not in the workforce anymore.
Yeah.
And they're dependent on the nanny state. So when you got a third of the country out of the workforce, that's a huge liability and a huge obligation on the working class. And what Trump is trying to do is create tax cuts that will bring offshore cash back to the U.S. and fuel the economy. There's about $2 trillion of offshore cash sitting outside, and lowering the tax rate from 35 to 20 will bring this home, hopefully, and fuel the economy. But yeah, look, the American middle class needs to really think hard. Everyone needs to think hard for themselves on making tough choices and tough decisions today when it comes to their family and their career, etc. Yeah. Investing is a secondary layer after your own main career. So that's very important. I think the middle class should consider this. Cryptocurrencies, because they're in hyper-growth mode, they present the most viable investing way to compensate for lack of income, along with cannabis, in my opinion. Traditional investments, Dan, they traditionally make about 7 or 8% a year. Yeah. You would need more than $1 million to see sufficient income coming from that. Yeah. But if you have less than that, which is what most people have, you need to either find hyper growth opportunities such as blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, or you need to find viable employment opportunities. I hope I made myself clear on that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I think a good way to explain this for people to understand is that if we're going to look to this new blockchain technology, a good analogy here is the fact that there was a time when the printing press, for example, was invented, and all of a sudden, just like that, information was able to be disseminated, distributed amongst a large population of people. But there was a monopoly on the distribution of information, and that all changed when the internet came around. I mean, YouTube changed that. All of a sudden, anybody can publish anything, and it can get out there. So right now, what we have with blockchain technology, for me, this is what YouTube did to the printing press. Blockchain technology is doing to fiat lending, centralized banking, fractional reserve lending. These types of things are being challenged right now. And it all comes down to the new technology, the third wave of the internet, we could call it, blockchain technology. So what can you tell us about some of the advancements in this technology and some of the ways that people can get involved in that space, not just cryptocurrency, but blockchain tech in general?
Well, blockchain tech is simply a decentralized database. And so existing companies and existing industries are just looking for ways to implement blockchain into their own industries. And because it's such a new industry, it's a great occupational opportunity for many people. There aren't many experts with decades of experience. You can really get involved in this industry right now and become one of the pioneers of the industry. The same way you could have joined tech in the 90s and you wouldn't have people that had such an advantage on you that you couldn't outpace them or catch them up. So in terms of opportunity, it's a huge opportunity. Many sectors will benefit from a decentralized database system. Some sectors are not, should not and will not get on the blockchain easily, but some will. And there's a huge opportunity there. also from an investment perspective, all the equipment that has to do with this will be sold by companies for a huge markup, and there's great opportunity there. Consulting would be a huge opportunity. Actually doing the mining, the facility, it will be a great opportunity. There's so much out there, and this is because this is so revolutionary. There's many things that are unknown today, Dan, that might pop up tomorrow. Just becoming part of the industry is an important decision that you can make. Yeah. Realize that decentralized database systems have been around since the 70s, but right now they're really picking up public attention because the current systems have proven so corrupt that the public is ready for a change. Yeah. It's the same way with cryptocurrencies. Digital money has been tried since the 90s, but right now it has much more public acceptance because we all saw that in 2008, the laws in our democracies are not the same for people. There are more important people in corporations than other people. It's just a fact. It's a corrupt fact, but it is a fact that some corporations are too big to fail. The ramifications of their failing would trickle, such secondary, and the first consequence is, hey, they're bad capitalists. They should, get fired, get jailed, get whatever, right? But the second and third ramifications of letting some corporations go down is that it's gonna, create chaos in societies. And so all of these cypherpunks and cryptographers came up with this great idea of something that's outside the system. So I think that's part of the big reason for this for the movement. Yeah. It is your own money. You're responsible for it, and I think that's something that's going to evolve in the future. I hate corruption, and I hate that some people are trying to engineer the economy and are influenced by agendas that are, not in the best interest of society and the grand economy, and therefore I am at this point very much in favor of decentralizing because it takes away a lot of the corruption.
Me too. I'm fully in favor of anything that is decentralizing the system. If it's taking more and more power out of fewer and fewer hands, that to me is a positive thing. And one of the ones that is doing that in a great way is one that you told me about, Hive Blockchain. And I want to get your updates on this because when you first told me about this, I mentioned it to my subscribers. I believe it was around $1.82 at the time. And we're now trading at I think it was over $4.30 today. So I've been getting contacted from people saying, Dan, thank you for telling me about that, and I want to thank you for telling me about it. So what are the latest developments with that one? Because I've been paying attention and it's been pretty exciting.
Well, Dan, I think you should go back, and I believe we did an interview on the day it launched or something, or a few days before, but we actually talked about this when they launched on September 18th at 74 cents Canadian. Right. But anyways, it traded over $6, $6.70 I believe was the high. So it's almost a 10 bagger, which is like making 10 times your money. It's the #1 traded stock in the world in the last month and a half. And look, Hive blockchain technology is getting a lot of attention, and obviously I'm very biased because I have a lot involved with this company, and so you should definitely do your own research about this and not just listen to a guy like me who has a substantial stake involved. But the bottom line is this. There's only one pure blockchain company in the world. It's called Hive Blockchain Technology. It's mining the cryptocurrencies. It's going to hoard the cryptocurrency it mines. So think of a gold mine that doesn't sell its gold but hoards its gold, and because the gold appreciates. But cryptocurrencies do appreciate much faster right now than gold. So it's a great strategy to cover your expenses and then hoard in the name and in the ownership of your shareholders. So you're getting a leverage play on cryptocurrencies without owning a cryptocurrency. You own a stock, you own ownership of a company that is growing, so it's going to buy more facilities, etc. That's why it's outperformed Bitcoin in the last month and a half by 7-1. So that's a huge premium. And what they're doing, they just bought another facility in Sweden. So they have 2 in Iceland, 1 in Sweden now. It increased capacity by 175%. They're going to do more. They have lots of cash in the bank. So it's a phenomenal opportunity. And just remember, there are no brand names yet. There are no go-to companies. There are no institutional companies. They're looking to be that go-to company that all institutional blockchain investors will put money in. And in the future, maybe even pay a dividend. So a huge, huge opportunity. I see so much more upside for it. It's a tiny company. Honestly, at $1 billion, this company could be much, much higher. I don't want to put a price target on it, Dan, but a dominator in every other sector in the world is much bigger than $1 billion company. And it's the bridge between, traditional accounts, traditional investors who do not want to open an exchange account and wallet, etc., but do want that leverage into the blockchain technology. I'm very excited about this, and I'm very glad that your subscribers, our subscribers, have made a ton of money on this.
Yeah, it's been proving to be a very successful one. I'm glad you told me about it. I'm glad I told my people about it. So on that note, maybe in closing, you can give us your final thoughts, or maybe perhaps some words of advice for people who are a little bit leery, a little bit cautious of wanting to get into this space right now, but they're interested. Perhaps they're on the fence. What sort of words of advice might you have for people to take that leap into this space?
As I said before, when an asset is digital, it has the drawback of the fact that anything can happen with electricity and the electrical grid, and you lose your password, whatever. There's a lot of responsibility involved, and therefore you shouldn't have everything at stake with digital currencies or cryptocurrencies, etc. So that's my first advice. You have to diversify. And I think that's a healthy advice, just like you wouldn't put everything you have in real estate or bonds or stocks, etc. Don't put everything you have in cryptocurrencies. And within cryptocurrencies, you can also diversify between a few of them as well. Each of them have different characteristics and different competitive advantages. I think ignoring it doesn't make sense at this point. It's not a fringe asset. It's not something that's on the sideline anymore. Accumulatively, Bitcoin is over $80 billion in market cap. It takes about $30 billion to fake one Bitcoin. And so it's a very proven economy, unhackable. And I think if you don't have to buy an entire Bitcoin. I mean, you don't have to pay $7,400 for a Bitcoin. You can open an account, ask the exchange to buy $10 worth of Bitcoin, and they will send you 0.000 whatever. Just the process of opening up and following it is very exciting. It's very fun. If you're looking for more aggressive potential, look at Hive, for example. Go to wealthresearchgroup.com/must for my personal write-up on this company. And I think it has huge potential going forward because I do want to put a price target on Bitcoin. I don't mind doing that. I think it will easily reach $25,000 in the next 2 years. And we can go back to this interview and see if I'm right. But, this is a huge industry. And I think people should really start to get involved and, do away with these biases and preconceived notions and take a look at what's going on. And with regards to everything that is going on in the global economy, Dan, I think it's important to understand that I think we will see a 1987 style 1 day, 2 day, 3 day crash in stocks real soon. I'm talking in the matter of the next few months before they run up to the ultimate blow off top for this bull market. And then we'll see a tough period for stock prices for years, while commodities will do much better. because higher inflation will come into the picture. Investing overall in the next few years, I think the more you get engaged, the more you stay engaged with newsletters like Wealth Research Group, which is publishing what I feel, what I research, and I do a lot of work. And the team does a lot of work to find great opportunities and just talk about the big picture, but just listening to a lot of ideas, absorbing and thinking what's good for your life. And I think the number one thing anyone can do right now is really think about if his career is sustainable in the next 20 years. Does he see a viable risk of it being obsolete, and what does he want to do with that information? I talk about this a lot at Wealth Research Group. So the best thing to do if you want to check out more, of how we are preparing for this new economy is go to the site and click on the top menu, click on the button that says Special Reports, and you can see a wide array of special reports to talk about financial independence and the coming crash and how to prepare for everything and how to take a look at your life and with regards to finances and your career, and just stay really engaged. This is a time to not put blinders on at all. This is the time of rapid change.
It is uncharted territory, but it's incredibly important, as you said, to be aware, and understand what these things mean moving forward. So all the links will be located in the description. Lior, thanks so much once again for talking to us today.
Hey, thank you.